white over there. Interesting. That should be better. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. Hello. Today we're talking about my favorite director, David Lynch. Rest in peace. Yeah, that's not nice, is it? That he's dead, that is, but that's life. So this was initially planned to happen sooner. You'd think it would have happened later, but I mean, I've also kind of been delaying this for a bit. I was planning to rewatch a lot of, if not all of, David Lynch's filmography earlier this year. I'd say back in January. I literally have to say back in January. I'd planned it basically in December. I was like, oh, I'm going to rewatch all of Twin Peaks, and then I'm going to watch all of his stuff. To a degree, most of it I had like criterions of 4Ks and all these different releases of that I was yet to like fully watch those versions of, even though I'd seen all of it before. The only thing I hadn't really watched was just his occasional like random TV shows that that were cancelled after a couple episodes, like On the Air and The Hotel. There was a bunch of short films I hadn't seen, a bunch of short films that he'd done post-2001, post-Mulholland Drive I also hadn't seen. There was a lot to dive into, and I have spent the past couple of months, especially since his passing, because I was going to watch Twin Peaks the day before, and then I was like, I'll put it off, I'll watch it tomorrow. And then, of course, I woke up to the news of his passing and was like, oh, shit. It worked better, I think, realistically. I rewatched the pilot of Twin Peaks as well as, Eraserhead and a couple other things. A lot of people did. A lot of people spent that weekend binging a bunch of his stuff. For me, it was like, I've got work, but I can watch a couple of his films, And so I spent most of February watching as much as I could in chronological order. It's until I got to the 90s where I stopped doing chronological order because I'm just like, I need to do other stuff because I was busy in March doing February doing a bunch of musicals. I just occasionally watched a David Lynch film or two, like Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me at the cinema, which was great. One of them, which was the Industrial Symphony #9, which is kind of a big, long, 50-minute long music video, hour-long music video, so that kind of worked in my musicals list. March came and went, and it's April that I'm filming this part of the video, and my parents have been away for 2 weeks overseas, and I'm like, great, I'll watch a couple more of his films, basically just get all the feature-length ones done, full stop, including, Lost Highway, Straight Story, Mulholland Drive, and Inland Empire. I've dived into the special features of every single Blu-ray that I have. There is so much to watch. There is so much I don't know how much I will watch currently, even though I want to do a full binge, because at the same time it's like, maybe I'll leave myself some treats, in the years to come. Hey, I've got this disc that features these special features. Let's see what I haven't seen yet. And it so happens to be I haven't seen this. Or I can be a complete completionist and use 2025 as my year to watch every single little thing. So I don't know how to talk about this video. Initially, it got to the stage where I was going to do his early works to the 90s, maybe up till Wild at Heart, Fire Walk with Me, I should say. I've got the shirt on, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. And then I would leave the rest of it for another video, and I might still do that. Because there's a lot of short films that, as of actually filming this clip, I haven't watched yet. I only just rewatched Mulholland Drive, and I still have everything after that to watch, including, of course, Twin Peaks: The Return, to watch that for the third time. But, I'm also well aware of what I've watched. I don't know if I'll do a ranked list. I don't know. Maybe I'll do that in the second part where I talk about his later stuff, if I get the chance to do that. But at least for now, I'm going to talk about his earlier stuff. As much of the short films as I can, I'm probably going to have to insert some clips because I'm pretty sure I've missed out. I haven't yet watched On the Air, and I haven't watched a short film that he did about a cowboy. I think it's on one of my DVD sets. But let's take a look at the physical media side of what I have, and then we'll go from there. Sound good? Cool. Let's do that. Alright, let's jump into it. We first have the David Lynch collection. This is a DVD collection released by Umbrella Entertainment. There is so much stuff that I have here. It's a slipcover version. It comes with... I'll probably show the sleeve instead because it's not reflective. Comes with all that stuff there, which includes Eraserhead, the short films collection, which is 92 minutes long. Lynch 1, Lynch... I think it has Lynch 2 as well as a special feature. Maybe... No, I thought there was a Lynch 2. Dynamic 1... and Dumbland. I mostly got this so I could get Dumbland. I already had Eraserhead, and a bunch of the short films were on the Eraserhead Criterion, but at the same time, I think Lynch 1, I think it was on another Criterion release, but I don't think I had Dynamic number 1, I definitely didn't have Dumbland. So, yeah, that was nice. I got that for like $30 odd on eBay, like just after he passed, which is convenient because Dumbland was going for like $80 odd, so I'm like, haha, no thanks. We then have Eraserhead, the DVD. This is actually a Japanese DVD. Wow, wasn't obvious from the get-go, was it? No, it was not. This is the Eraserhead 2000 release. It's the only version I have of it. And I just happened to find this in Japan back in 2019. Of all the films that I found that I bought, yeah, it's just a Region 2 disc. It's I've got a bunch of art cards, digitally remastered. Has a little David Lynch World magazine. Volume 1 talks about his short films. It basically is just a bunch of ads. It's not uber fancy, but it's okay. It's just an ad. Just an ad. So yeah, a bunch of postcards. It's cute. I like it. I like to have it just for the factor that like it's actually my favorite of his films. I don't know if I'll ever watch the DVD version, mostly because I don't really need to. I have, obviously, the Criterion release, which, you know, I won't break down what the contents of the inside is, but I do have it, which is great. Would love to see a UHD release of it, but the 4K restoration is great. And like I said, it comes with it comes with 6 of his short films, which is really cool. So, like, I watched all of those. One of them, I think Premonitions, Fallen, and Evil Deed was actually from the 90s, so I watched that despite the fact that I was trying to go in chronological order of all of his films. So, yeah. Yeah. It's nice. It's good stuff. Then we have not one, but 2 copies of Elephant Man. I pre-ordered this version, the Blu-ray, from Zavvi when it first came out on 4K. I thought it was this version, because it said it was a new 4K, and it wasn't. It was just a standard Blu-ray, but then I bought this for... I think I got this one on Amazon, actually, for like $20. Even though they did release it in Australia, but by that stage, I had already bought, like, the Blu-ray, and I was so annoyed. But then I rewatched this, and I was like, when obviously after he passed, I was like, yeah, this is great. This is such a fucking good transfer, and a great film. My original copy of Dune, this just comes with some extra deleted scenes and bonus features and stuff, so nothing uber fancy. Ironically, never watched this Blu-ray. I've only ever seen Dune twice. The first time was in the cinema. I watched it at the Astor when they did the retrospective. I wasn't in love with it. I was like, this is weird, but okay. But like, not in a Lynchian way, in a narrative way. I mean, I guess that is still a Lynchian thing. Either way, I have this, which is the collector's set, Steelbook 4K UHD. Ironically, the 4K disc doesn't work properly. I only found that out when I was watching it, because I watched it with my brother and his partner. Both of them had never seen it before, and it just kept, like, skipping scenes and sequences and a whole bunch of stuff about 45 minutes in, and I was so annoyed. But then I chucked on the Blu-ray disc, same 4K scan, everything. I was like, gotta be honest here, I don't think I need a UHD disc. This looks really good anyway, so I'm kind of happy with the Blu-ray disc. Maybe if I can get it for a really cheap one day, a UHD, but I'm fine with this. I'm just annoyed that the 4K disc doesn't work, and of course I didn't know that, and there's no way to get it replaced. It's fucked. It's done for. To power through, we've got the Criterion standard Blu-ray release, not the 4K UHD of Blue Velvet. I did have an old Blue Velvet release. I must have given it to a friend. The Twin Peaks: The Complete Mystery, the entire mystery, which includes Fire Walk with Me and The Missing Pieces, back when this was all that existed, back when. I watched that before The Return ever came out. We got Wild at Heart. This is the Shout Select release, which still has, a good selection of bonus features. I know people were disappointed that it wasn't director approved, and it wasn't. But it's still a fine release, still has good alternate artwork. It's still a great fucking movie, so, it is what it is. We have Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. This is a standard Blu-ray, so it's the 4K scan on Blu-ray. I don't think they've done a UHD yet. I think they only just announced it, actually. This one has a bit of a nook in the corner, but, it's fine. It's nice to have, and it is the version I watched, despite the fact that I'd seen the Fire Walk with Me. I think this is the third time I've seen it by this stage. Maybe fourth. I watched it on the Blu-ray, and then I watched the Criterion, and then I watched it in the cinema. And the Criterion release was the one they showed in the cinema anyway, so, We got Lost Highway. This is my old version of it. I don't know if it's even worth keeping. There are 6 short films. Oh, it comes with the newer short films. Interesting. I think that's why I'm keeping it, because it comes with short films that I either don't have or just haven't looked into. I should watch the bonus features on this disc. I forgot I had it. Because, of course, I watched the Criterion 4K UHD. So, which comes with different special features, obviously. So, but it does come with Pretty as a Picture, The Art of David Lynch, which is basically a look at his whole filmography until this point, plus a making of Lost Highway, which is quite nice. It's nicely insightful. You get, conversations with his kids and his wife, his ex-wife, Peggy. So, it was just nice. I have not one, but 2 releases of The Straight Story. This is actually the German release. The original German release from Art House. I don't think it has any special features. It's all in German, but it also doesn't have any special features. So, I think I either watched this Blu-ray release or I didn't, and I've never seen it. I don't remember, but I know I saw it. I think I saw it in the cinema. I think I saw it at the Astor during that retrospective. Haven't seen it since until now, where I watched this version, the imprint release, which is a very nice. Oh, it actually is from a 4K restoration. I had no idea. Well, that makes sense because it was from they've done a new UHD disc. The German release actually is a new UHD disc. So I should. There's also a bunch of special features I'm yet to dive into here, but they're all interviews and featurettes with the crew, not with Lynch, plus the video essay. So, my initial release of Mulholland Drive, which is the Studio Canal Blu-ray, which was the 4K restoration, and has a bunch of special features, of course, standard Australian release until they remastered it in UHD, which I eventually got the UHD via the Criterion release in the bulky-ass set that this is. And again, gorgeous, fucking divine transfer. I had never watched this until tonight, actually. I had never watched the 4K UHD. I'd only seen the old Blu-ray, which was the 4K scan, and I saw it at uni. We watched it in class one time, which was wonderful. But I just never thought to get the Criterion. I never wanted to get the Criterion because I had the Studio Canal release. It was the exact same. But then when they announced the UHD, got myself a UHD, baby. Then the weirder one, Inland Empire. This was one that even my mate was like, you don't need the Blu-ray. It was shot on a 480p camera. So I'm very... Gotta be honest, I don't know how I want to watch this again because I do have the Criterion release. And I know the Criterion release is not... there's issues with its transfer because it is a 4K restoration of a film that wasn't shot on anything that could potentially get the 4K. So I know that for one thing my mate actually did, ironically, he actually watched this version, despite him saying I shouldn't have gotten the Blu-ray for the film, but of course I was going to get the Blu-ray. And he watched this and said that it actually looks better because it looks worse. So... but this still has Lynch 1 and Lynch 2. So Lynch 2 was not on the DVD set, but Lynch 1 was. So I have that on this. And it also comes with 70 5 minutes of extra scenes, plus some extra short films. So, yeah. I don't know. That's why I keep both versions, because if I happen to not like I'll find out when I watch it, the Criterion. If I don't like the transfer, I'll just not watch it. And I'll just be like, great, at least I've got it for the special features, and I'm happy with that, even though it's still director approved, so, you know. I do have The Art Life, which is just a Criterion. It's not obviously directed by Lynch, but it is about him. So if you're a big Lynch fan, it's worth getting for that. And then, of course, we get to Twin Peaks: The Return. This was my original set for it before it got an Australian release. The Australian release was a big, chunky version of this, which actually slid open, which I wish this was. This is a Velcro release. Wow. Look, it's Cooper and Mr. C and Dougie. It's a weird set, but it is just your regular, fold out. I do kind of wish that I had the Australian release, because it was a chunkier clamshell kind of case. It looked wonderful, but it's super out of print. But at the same time, who needs the super out of print Twin Peaks set when you have the exceptionally super out of print Twin Peaks set? Of course, the infamous From Z to A, which comes with every single episode, every single special feature. Firewalk with Me. I think it's the Criterion scan of Firewalk with Me, but I didn't want to play with it. I was just like, fuck it, I'm just going to put on my Criterion disc. And of course, The Return, the pilot in 4K UHD, and Part 8 in 4K UHD. The really big, gorgeous set, which I have done a deep dive, an unboxing into at least. So, yeah. And it comes with, the missing pieces, of course. Alright, so I don't even know how to break down what I think of David Lynch's filmography. I love his films. I've always loved his films. I don't remember what the first film of his I watched was. Part of me thinks it was Elephant Man, but I don't know, because I don't know if my mum had actually shown that to me as a kid, or if it was just hey, I really love the Elephant Man. It's so hard to say. It doesn't matter. My exposure to David Lynch was through so many different things. I used to watch Achievement Hunter, the Rooster Teeth subsidiary thingy, where they were talking about Twin Peaks, and that's what got me into it, because they were talking about it, and they were talking about how you should watch Twin Peaks, not as a how-to, but just in a conversation. So I watched Twin Peaks and watched the first season, and then watched the first couple episodes of season 2, and then skipped to the end. That was a bad idea, because then I went straight to The Missing Pieces, and then I went to, because I bought the box set, and then I went to Firewalk with Me. So I was very confused by a lot of that. I don't know how I was able to watch The Missing Pieces and then watch Firewalk with Me. I don't know if I did it, split it, watched part of The Missing Pieces, realized I'm watching the wrong thing, and then jumped to Firewalk with Me. I just knew I watched it wrong. But I think that kind of makes it more interesting, because it didn't make it less confusing or more confusing. It was kind of both. It wasn't until a couple years later that before the Return came out, that I actually rewatched Twin Peaks season 2 properly, and Firewalk with Me properly. So I had enough time to watch that all twice. But that was my early high school years, so I'd say maybe 2014 period. I'm pretty sure that was my exposure to him initially. I think I watched Mulholland Drive and Eraserhead that early on, but aside from that, none of it. Most of it wasn't until my uni years, and my first year of uni was when Twin Peaks: The Return was coming out, and I had a tutor, Kaz, who I've actually interviewed on my channel before, Karen Horsley, and her and I had a deep passion for David Lynch's stuff, so we had our whole first semester, and we were talking about him constantly. That whole film class was just a Friday afternoon, let's talk about film stuff. By the end of the semester, most of the kids weren't turning up, so it was just me, her, and a couple others just talking about David Lynch. And when The Return was coming out, her and I would constantly run into each other in the hall, because we happened to have the same class in the same building, and we would talk about it. And that was our water cooler thing, because that was the whole thing when Twin Peaks first came out in the 90s, that it was on a Sunday night or something, so you could go to work the next day and talk about it at the water cooler, because that's a thing that people did in the 90s. They don't do that anymore. They have, like, Reddit and X and stuff. X, what a stupid name. Twitter. Anyway, it's a fascinating thing that I got to enjoy the return as it came out weekly on a shitty TV where I couldn't see half of what was happening, but every week I tuned in and watched it on Stan. So you had a shitty compressed stream on a shitty TV. I guess it can't be worse than the 90s, you know, on a CRT or whatever, so I'll give it that. But yeah, so rewatching it on Blu-ray was fucking extraordinary. But yeah, aside from that, most of my first watches for these were on Blu-ray discs, aside from, again, Dune and The Straight Story. I knew I watched at the Astor. Eraserhead I watched at the Astor as well, but I'd already seen it. I think I had the Criterion release, and then I saw it at the Astor, or it was the other way around. Not the other way around. I might have had a bootleg version, like a pirated version or something that I watched, and I just fell in love with it, and then I got the Criterion. I watched it at the Astor because I wanted to make sure I saw it on the big screen, and my god was it loud. Ungodly loud, that's for sure. I would have loved to have used the time for the retrospectives that came out post his death to have rewatched a lot of these in cinema. Wild at Heart could have been insane in the cinema, but I was happy with watching my Blu-ray. Mulholland Drive, I could have as well. There were so many cinemas local to Melbourne. You had the Astor, the Cinema Nova, the Lido. All of them had some kind of itchy fucking nose. All of them had some kind of retrospective, which is wonderful. Like, it's great that they all put in this time to do that. And a lot of them, I was just busy at work, or I had filming on the weekend, so I wasn't able to watch a lot of them. But I was like, it doesn't matter. I had one screening booked in, that was Firewalk with me with my friends at the Lido, and that was all I needed. You know, and that was already part of their Lynch retrospective because they were already doing a cult cinema retrospective, and they had Firewalk with Me, and then they're like, fuck it, let's chuck in a bunch of other David Lynch films, we just happen to have them, whatever. Yeah. That's why it's kind of taken me a couple months to get through these, because I didn't want to just dive so much into them, because it's weird watching his films. And this is why I don't think I really want to do a video where I talk about every single one of his films individually. I don't find much interest in that. You know, if you want to get my opinions or what I think, star ratings, go down below. My letterbox is there. You'll find my reviews. I don't currently have a open to the public playlist, which is like a ranked list, because I don't really know if I want to rank them, but I probably should have maybe more easy access so people can look at the reviews. I don't know. Because I'm also including all the short films. So it's hard to like rank them for that reason. I don't feel like that's appropriate. I feel like the easiest thing to note is just that Eraserhead is my favorite of his films. I've always loved it. I screened it for my birthday one year. I think it was my 25th birthday. There was a cinema that we could rent, and this was back when that cinema wasn't restricted to just one particular brand of films that was streamed. Yuck. But we were able to bring our own versions, and I had like burnt my Blu-ray copy of Eraserhead, the 4K scan, onto a hard drive, brought that in, plugged it in. Maybe technically illegal. It doesn't. That's probably why they don't do it there anymore, but it doesn't matter. And I got to introduce half of them, of my friends that were there, had never seen it before. The other half had. So, like, I know Phil, Caitlin, and Guy had all seen it, but, like, Bill, Simone, and Lachlan hadn't, and my partner Helene had never seen it either. The only thing she'd seen David Lynch-wise was the pilot of Twin Peaks, because I'd shown her that a year or so earlier. But yeah, needless to say, people who hadn't seen it before didn't love it, but also the people who did see it before were also just like, yeah, it's Eraserhead. So I gave them no context going into it. Like, it was a mystery movie. They didn't know what it was. Only my mate Guy knew what it was, and because he guessed. And Phil and Katie, I'm pretty sure, knew what it was because they also guessed. I was debating if I wanted to watch a Italian / like a horror film called Demoni, because that's about people going to a mystery movie and then possession and demons and stuff. But I felt like it was more appropriate to watch Eraserhead because it's just my favorite film. Well, it's one of my favorite films. So yeah. Anyway, Elephant Man, you can't go wrong. It's so fucking beautiful. It's a beautifully directed, tragic story. It's so well crafted. The black and white is exceptional. It's so visually, like, it is the most normal film next to, like, The Straight Story for David Lynch, but I think they're perfect polar, like, kind of on the same level, where it's a simple story about a person going through their life doing this one thing, and there's still all these weird Lynchian stuff that goes throughout that I love, from a visual style, from the audio style, from some weird characters and stuff, especially more of The Straight Story. There's always those kookier characters, but it's like traditional Americana. There are just people that are fucking batshit insane out in the wilderness. It happens. Farmers, they drink weird shit. It doesn't matter. Elephant Men, they're British. They're always weird. They're British. Anyway, then we get to Dune. I don't love Dune, but I don't hate Dune. I think it's my least favourite of his films. That's, like, in terms of feature-length films, because that seems like an obvious choice. I've been advised that I should read the book, which I have, and it would help me to understand the film more, and also I'd be able to appreciate the film more, because you'd realise how many of those dots are kind of still there. I'm not probably ever going to watch the extended cut. I don't have that. I know Viavision has done has released the extended cut on a Blu-ray set, which I would like to get one day, but not anytime soon. I kind of keep forgetting every sale because I just never see it in stores, so I don't really care. I do really like the production design and a lot of the cast in Dune. It does have a really nice, like, sci-fi epic feel, and the first hour and a half is really solid. Just the second hour of them, like that last hour, just is too quick. It's doing too much too quickly. It's basically once Paul meets the Fremen, it's just bam, 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 we're done. Movie's over, let's move on. It's just like, you lost me a little bit. But I still liked it. I thought it was fun. Like, it's an adventure. I'll give it that. Blue Velvet. Fuck. Blue Velvet is just beautiful. You can't go wrong. Twin Peaks I've talked about. You can't go wrong with Twin Peaks. Sure, there's a bit of a slump in the middle of season 2. Sure, okay, fuck. Yes, that's a bit of a problem. Once you get past like episode 8 or 9, it just kind of, there's a very obvious huge dive in quality. Once Lynch leaves, it kind of stumbles, and then Mark Frost leaves, and they're like, oh shit, we're basically in hell. And I will admit, despite the worst rated episode being the one that Diane Keaton directed, she is the most like David Lynch in her directing, which is insane. But it's also such a unique show for the fact that each director got to have their own vision brought to the screen, and I really like that. It's just that they were stuck with doing soap opera narrative threads that were still running from the previous couple of episodes, and some of those, threads were shit. So I still find it fun. It's really funny. It's got some great moments in it. Season 2 is still really fun. Season 1 is iconic. Season 1 is perfect. If not near perfect. One of the best first seasons of a TV show you'll get. Nothing to cry about there. It's fucking flawless. Season 2, yeah, it's long and unnecessarily so, and it's crazy that the season is that long. Like, where we'll complain about modern TV shows having like 8 episodes in a season, Twin Peaks nails that, but technically they've got 9, because you've got the pilot and then episode 1 to 8. I'm pretty sure, I always get it confused. Is it 8 episodes, but it's the pilot, then episodes 1 to 7, and then episode 8 is actually the first episode of season 2, which is like a feature-long episode directed by David Lynch, and then the rest of it is like up to episode 25. With episode 25, if it's not 24, the last episode of the fucking show is my favorite episode. It's just, hey, here's 5 to 10 minutes of just wrapping up that soap opera shit, and not giving a fuck about it, and then here's just the most insane stuff you'll ever see on TV for like 25 years when the return comes. So either way, wonderful show. I guess we jump to Wild at Heart. Wild at Heart is beautiful. Again, like I said, it's the first 40-minute stagger for me, first 30 to 40-minute stagger, but because it's just so tonally whiplashed constantly, but then when it kind of finds its groove, as it starts to groove, I really start to dig it, and the rest of the film is great. With a wonderful ending and a terrible makeup job for Nicolas Cage's nose. Holy shit! But hey, Sherilyn Fenn, Cheryl Lee as well. Holy shit! I mean, Laura Dern, fucking A. Just a beautiful cast. Wonderful film. Fire Walk with Me, I consider it to be a masterpiece, but a messy masterpiece. Like, it's one of those. It's similar in a way to Mulholland Drive, in a way, both of which are masterpieces of their own right. But, like, where Mulholland Drive kind of seems like it figures itself out, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me doesn't, but at the same time, I don't think it needs to. It has so many extra loose things, and there's stuff in the missing pieces that I wish were in the actual feature of the runtime. But at the same time, it's a film about the tragedy of Laura Palmer in the last few days of her life. You know, it's not trying to be, let's wrap up all the mysteries from season 2, or let's set up all the mysteries for season 1. It's just its own thing in its own right. And it's fucking weird, but it's also this really powerful, dramatic, like, traumatic expression of just utter pain. And it is beautifully told for that reason. It's weird little funny Twin Peaksy moments, whilst also just showing how dark and shitty things actually are. You know, the stuff they couldn't show on TV. So, you know, it's incredible, and Cheryl Lee is tremendous. I can't believe that she was basically not in anything else that David Lynch did until The Return, which is it boggles my mind. And then, of course, you jump to Lost Highway, and Lost Highway for me is... I mean, I think Dune is his worst, but Lost Highway is the only one of his that I don't really love rewatching. I've seen it maybe 2 or 3 times now. I still can't wrap my head around it. I understand what it's going for, especially like David Lynch's like explanation, which, what did he say about it? There was this particular phrase that he used, which made a lot more sense if you actually understand what it means. Lynch referred to it as a psychogenic fugue. Yeah, so anyway, sure, it makes sense, but he only found out what that was after he'd made the film, so it made it easier to explain what the fuck the film is. And I get it, like, it almost feels like a proto-version of Mulholland Drive, and it still works in and of its own right. It's just such a weird fucking movie. It's also one much like Wild at Heart, where for me, the first 45 minutes of it, I just don't vibe with. I like it, but it's just not clicking yet. But then the rest of the film happens, and I'm like, I like the rest of the film, but I don't love the first 45 minutes. Like, it really hits a beat, basically near the very end of Bill Pullman's part in the first section that he's in. But then when he changes to Balthazar Getty, and then the rest of the film is fucking amazing. I actually think Bill Pullman is better in the second half of the film than he is in the first half. And he's not even in that much of the second half of the film. He just feels like a fully realized character by that stage. It's crazy. Anyway, it's also fucking gorgeous. They're all beautiful looking films. Obviously, masterful sound design, great scores and soundtracks. Just wonderful stuff. The Straight Story. The considerably normal film of his, but when you watch it, you realize, yeah, sure, it's a straightforward story. It's kind of in the name, even though that's his surname, because it's Alvin Straight's story. But there's also just this essence to it where it's still got these little Lynchian things to it, and I love that about it. Like, it is such a beautiful film, because it is, in regards, when you look at Lynch's stuff, they're all films that like try to show reality in its own normal sense, but also the stuff that's just a little bit off. An off character here or there, some weirdly dark shit underneath. You look at Blue Velvet, it's the most obvious example of, oh, it's a pretty ordinary, very Americana kind of world. Oh, what's that? There's just this evil that just lives buried between the creases, and you just don't really notice it until you just happen to stumble into it. Twin Peaks has the same kind of thing like that. Lost Highway, in a way, has that as well. Wild at Heart, they all have it, where it's like there's a normal world that exists, but we're trying to focus more on what's not normal about this world. And it's the contrast with that normal world that makes it more interesting. And the straight story has that, because the straight story brings a more humanistic take to that. It's like, oh, it's just an old guy who's lived life. Look, he can, pass some words of wisdom and whatever, but his words of wisdom comes from a lifetime of pain and existence. He mentioned his wife who'd passed, 10, 15 years earlier, the fact that they had 14 kids but only 7 survived. It's the fact that he was in the Second World War and accidentally shot a guy who had helped them out so much because he thought it was a German fucking sniper or spy or something. And he has to live with that guilt. Just this nice, charming old man who lives with his daughter, who just, should take better care of his health and drives a fucking tractor 70 odd miles, which I don't know what that is in kilometers, but it's obviously a long fucking way. It's probably something I could drive within a day or two. I think that's also established in the movie. He could drive it within 2 days, but unfortunately he can't drive. And you just see this darkness underneath it. But also the weirdness isn't just the darkness, it's also just the things that aren't used to his normal life. He's so used to living in this one spot that when, he sees this wave of cyclists pass him and then he ends up camping with them that night, it's a bewildering thing. Oh my God, all these cyclists, what is happening? This one girl who just happens to, have run away from home, and he's able to convince her of just family is the best thing you can have, even if you have struggles with them. It's literally telling you, this is my journey as well. I've been through this shit. I'm trying to rectify it, and I'm going through a much longer journey than you are now, but you have the chance to, do it quicker, and you should. Yeah, there's a lot of great moments like that, where it just gives you all these weirdness stuff, or just, Americana, but played in this weirder way, but still in a natural kind of way as well, because it's just normal stuff, but it's just from someone else's perspective, where it's not an everyday thing, so it makes it super normal in a way. Supernatural, even though it's not supernatural. Anyway, then you jump to Mulholland Drive, and Mulholland Drive is insane. It's one of those films where for the first 90 minutes you're like, this is a really interesting mystery, you got enough set up stuff here that could go somewhere that for most of it isn't going anywhere, because a lot of it isn't touched on after the first time. And then when it snaps into its second reality, bam, suddenly we're somewhere else and things are like, how did we get here? What's going on? After a couple watches, you kind of start piecing it together better. I think the obvious explanation that most of the film was a dream sequence reorganized into positions that benefited the main character's mindset, the world that she wishes that she was living in, but then you snap back into either into reality, or this is the real world, this is what's actually happened, and she has to live with the consequences of her choices. And yeah, it's really beautifully done. That whole last 45 minutes, the last hour, is fucking gorgeous. Basically, everything from probably Club Silencio onwards is just beautiful. It is so fucking good that it's incredibly captivating, and I love it. I mean, who the fuck doesn't? But at the same time, I know people on Letterboxd who I follow who just don't click with the film, which is fine, It is what it is. My parents were after a mystery film one night, so I said, hey, here's a 2.5 hour long movie, you'll love it. And they watched it and they were like, what the fuck was that? And I'm like, I don't fucking know, but it's great, isn't it? They enjoyed it, they liked the performances, you get that. It's got a good vibe to it. Inland Empire. Having watched the Criterion release, the 4K scan, surprisingly, from what is a 480i file, crazy how they just did that. The whole process, mental. The fact they were just like, we're going to go back to the original version and remaster it into 1080p and then remaster it into 4K. Anyway, it is also AI upscaled. It's a weird one in terms of the Criterion release. However, I would definitely argue easily the best looking version of it. Just the best version, full stop. The audio is fantastic. The 5.1 mix fucking slaps. Video-wise, it looks great. I still compared it to my old Blu-ray, which is basically what it originally looked like, except just as a 1080p version, where it shouldn't be in a 1080p version, and it looks just a bit kind of muddier. A bit less clear, but that's kind of seems appropriate as well. So again, pick your fancy. I personally would just say go with the Criterion because it's easier to get, but the old Blu-ray is still fine if you're a purist. Just do both. Because at least the Criterion, you get all the documentaries. A lot of extra bonus features on that Criterion. It's really nice. The film itself is very strange. Obviously, I think there's a rule in Hollywood usually where if you win an Oscar or you get some big accolades, you get a blank check. And he didn't win the Oscar for Mulholland Drive, unfortunately. But this basically was like a blank check thing. There's plenty of interviews where he talks about how Laura Dern became his neighbor one day and was just like, David, we got to do a project together. We got to make a film. And so he just kept writing random parts to random bits, and they would film it and then they would go from there. And it's just a film that took a while to make because they just kept filming it and filming it and filming it until they were like, it's done. It's the strangest of Lynch's films. It's on par with Eraserhead in how surreal and cerebral it is. You can tell how, like, Eraserhead is the, it's the basic analysis of fatherhood is, overwhelming. However, Inland Empire is like, hey, I've done the fatherhood thing. I've done all the stuff I've done until this point, and now it's a analysis of, like, the Hollywood life and what it's like to, I guess, be a woman in trouble. It is the tagline, but it is very much the easy way to... It's what the movie should have been called, I feel like, even though he has a great reason why it was called Inland Empire, both per Laura Dern saying the phrase at one stage, and then him getting, like, a book from his brother, which was his book from when he was 5 years old, and he had the opening page was titled Inland Empire. So... yeah, it's his last film, as much as a fan of The Return, I would praise that as his last film because you could watch it as an 18-hour-long feature, but, realistically it's not. It's a series. It's a bunch of episodes. It's a TV show. So, being his last film, it's very weird to watch. I haven't watched it since, I'd say maybe 2018, maybe 2017 even, and... yeah, just, I don't remember a lot of the film. And I think it kind of benefits in that way, where something like, where something like Lost Highway, I don't remember what happens in most of the film because not a lot of it captures my interest until it does. And then I remember the parts that do capture my interest, and then it goes back to the other stuff that doesn't capture my interest, so I don't remember that kind of stuff. Inland Empire is like, it's hard to know, like, I have favorite scenes. Like, my favorite Lynch stuff is in this movie. That and Eraserhead, are the two films that have my favorite Lynch scenes. My favorite Lynch scene in particular from this film is when they do the whole locomotion dance number. And it's wonderful. It's just, I remember watching it the first time just being like, what the fuck am I watching? And I'm like 2 hours into the most insane film I'd ever seen. And rewatching the film, I'm like, this is still just as insane. Like, it seems normal enough within the first hour and a bit when it still isn't normal at all. There's so many parts where they go to Poland for some fucking reason. And you're following Laura Dern's character, but then suddenly she becomes someone else. Very David Lynchian thing of, like, whether it's an analysis of the character or just a doppelganger effect, because it's what he does. And it becomes a really interesting, like, arguably meta-textual narrative on the Hollywood life and doing dual roles and all this kind of stuff. It is so much to read into this film, because then there's also, what the fuck is up with the Poland stuff? I don't understand. So, I love it. I absolutely adore this film, because it's just a bunch of fucking nonsense, and it's wonderful to watch. It has the scariest Lynch scene, sorry Mulholland Drive, but I think it's scarier in this scene where Laura Dern's character walks up to the camera slowly with one spotlight on her and a really ugly face. Well, at least a very stylized, over-the-top grin. And then just as she's slowly peering in, it speeds up and she just kind of spooks you, to the point that it literally cuts to a different shot of Laura Dern kind of reacting to that, like, oh, okay, that was weird. Which is great, I love it. The whole locomotion scene is just exactly what I would pin as watching a David Lynch film. Just all these people dancing to this, old song, something that he loves, 50s and 60s stuff, and you got all these strobing lights and stuff. It's got a weird angle, very particular costuming, very particular set design. It still feels very 2000s, but it also feels very just, what? And it just keeps cutting back to Lauren Dern's character, who might not even be there in the room, but she basically is, and she's just looking at these girls just like, I don't know if I'm enjoying this or not, but it's happening. And I'm just experiencing it. And I'm like, I love that, that's great. So, yeah. I don't know, it is what it is. And then you get Twin Peaks: The Return, which I've seen enough times now to know that it is such a beautiful encapsulation of everything that Lynch has done. As a sequel continuation to Twin Peaks, it's very vastly different. It drops the whole facade of the soap opera look and like the satirical soap opera and even the detective mystery. So much of it is just dropped for just, hey, this beautiful world that we all enjoyed 25 years ago, assuming you were around in the 90s to actually experience it, something that I wasn't high. That's all in real time died badly. It's basically been corrupted and evil has grown and blossomed and the whole world sucks. With occasional instances of purity and light and beauty, and then that other world where it's all weird and purple and shit, and people have carvings on their eyeballs, and people's faces have been turned into PNGs, because special effects is fucking amazing in this show. It looks incredible. Except for that one photoshopped image of Michael Cera as a baby. It looks awful. But aside from that, beautiful cast, fucking insane show. Like, nothing will ever be like that again. Much like nothing was ever really like Twin Peaks in the first place. Like, so much of it tried to be, and so much of it never was. But at the same time, was Twin Peaks ever a fully realized vision? No. And has it been now? Well, I'd have to say yes, mostly because Lynch is dead, but also because he did what he wanted to with Frost for The Return. They had all the creative control for that. And it is a masterpiece of a show. And I think it also benefits if you've watched at least most of everything that Lynch has done to that point. Like, if you've seen Eraserhead and Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive and Inland Empire, I think you have enough of an idea of what you can watch with in tangent of Twin Peaks and The Return, Twin Peaks and Fire Walk with Me and The Missing Pieces. If you culminate all of those together, you basically get The Return, because The Return is still stylized in that interesting way like Inland Empire is. It feels very Eraserhead at times, it feels very Mulholland Drive at times, it feels very fucking Wild at Heart and Elephant Man and Blue Velvet. It has so many pieces of every single thing that he's done that it's such a crazy encapsulation of just everything that he'd made until that point. And the fact that he was able to do that in a sequel to a TV show that ended 25 years earlier is just masterful. It's technically, yes, the final big project that Lynch ever did. Sure. But at the same time, that's not exactly a bad thing. We've still got plenty of short films. Whatever that thing was on Netflix about the monkey, I did watch it, don't worry. It's notable to mention that this isn't all of David Lynch. There's obviously some books of his that he wrote and the interviews and whatever. I'm not really going to touch on those. However, there are... Just bear with me for a sec. I can't mention David Lynch without his music. The Big Dream, Thought Gang, and my favorite one, Crazy Clown Time. This shit is insane. I actually haven't, as of recording, I have not listened to Thought Gang yet, and I don't have Cellophane Memories because I ordered it, and then it never came in, and I got a refund for it, and they didn't sell it anymore, and now the CD is impossible to find. I don't want a fucking vinyl. I just want the CD. I know I can stream it, so at least there's that. There's still accessibility. However, it's really, really interesting to look at all the other things that David Lynch did. Because as much as you have your films and TV shows, the stuff that he's known for, you have to realize, if you haven't already, which probably if you're a David Lynch fan, you probably have, and good for you. Good on you. He was an artist in so many different aspects. You know, he's got his weird as fuck paintings, which is beautiful. I've got a book of that coming in for as an anniversary gift from my partner. He did a bunch of photography work as well, which you can find as books. There are obviously the interview books, the biography book he did with Room to Dream, and there's the albums, his music. And his music, you'd think, is kind of crazy. I remember listening to Crazy Clown Time in probably high school, late high school, early uni. And that was fucking weird. I watched the music video for it and I was just like, I don't know what this is. I don't like it. I don't understand it. The thing is, it's not like I don't understand it in the same way of something like, I don't know, Lost Highway or Mulholland Drive with a narrative, whatever the fuck. It's just that it was just blues. It's just blues. It's just modern blues. And it's really beautifully done. I've got the album as well, the Julie Cruz album. I've got all the ones for like most of the films, like with Wild at Heart and Mulholland Drive and Lost Highway. I've got the soundtrack stuff for them as well, but they're not all original music, whatever. Even though, I actually do have the Twin Peaks for The Return, because there's 2 albums for that. There's the one for the, Roadhouse music, and then there's the score as well. So a lot of Angelo Badalamenti, Julie Cruz. Of course, I've got my standee of Cooper over in the corner, which I only realized that the word was standee, like, recently. Crazy. That was one that I got when they had the Experience with the Stars, or whatever it was, where a couple of the cast members from Twin Peaks came to Australia. They did a whole world tour. David Lynch did a Skype call-in, which was great. My only on-hand experience with Lynch was that of him just doing a Skype call-in to the Palais Theatre in St Kilda. I went there with my dad, who had never seen, I don't think he'd seen anything David Lynch. He'd seen, one episode of Twin Peaks, and it wasn't his thing, so he never watched any more. None of my parents got into it, so it never happened for them. Whereas by then, I was a big fan of the show and of several other things. The Return had come out by that stage, and it was wonderful. So it's one of those things with Lynch where he was more than just a filmmaker, and I think a lot of us know that by now, that he was a really interesting artist. I don't even know how to describe it in some ways. I love his music. His music is just so bizarre, but, still really fun to listen to. Not the kind of shit I play at work, with other people listening to it. I'm not going to fucking chuck on Crazy Clown Time when my colleagues are around. Maybe, but then you got David Lynch's voice singing. I'm like, oh, maybe not, actually. Maybe that's a bad idea. Like some albums of, Daft Punk you could listen to, but some albums you can't listen to. So, you gotta pick and choose your ball court. But yeah, it's the same as if I was to, suggest a David Lynch film to someone. I would always go with Eraserhead. Everyone's like, oh, go with, the one that's easy to get into, Blue Velvet. That one's probably, the easiest one to get into. It's got its own kookiness and its strangeness, but it works in every facet of its way. It's a beautiful film. But I'm like, yeah, or you could just fucking just go balls to the wall, start with Eraserhead, his most fucked up film. There you go. That's, his start. Why not go with that? If that's the film that so many people first saw, then why not go with that? I mean, sure, you could go with The Elephant Man, you could go with Dune if you're fucking desperate, but go with Eraserhead. It's easily the craziest one. And he gives you such a great insight into his visual style, his directing style, his writing style, his editing style, his sound design style. Yeah, sure, the guy who did sound design on, every single film he's ever fucking done became a musician. Fucking who would have thought it? He literally produced the music for so many shows and films that he did with Angelo Badalamenti, who also co-produced his albums. So, yeah, unsurprising there. I think except for the last one, obviously, because he'd passed away a year or so before that came out, I believe. Oh, maybe not. No, it did. He did. So yeah, this is why I don't really want to do a ranked list of all of Lynch's films, because there's just so many, and I love them to so many different degrees, and a lot of the time I could be watching them even in a realistic angle of just, I'm just not in the mood for this, even though I wanted to put it on. You know, most of the times I've watched Wild at Heart, I have never really been in the mood for it, and I've just put it on and just been like, yeah, I'm still not getting it. You know, I'm missing a vital element that maybe it's a watch it with a crowd kind of thing. You know, maybe it's I need a 3 to 10 hour long video essay that breaks it down, even though it's all interpretive anyway. You know, he's not a director that everyone, liked, in terms of his work. Him as a person, I think if you ever met him, I heard he was a great guy. But like as an artist, he was very artistic. You know, his music is strange. His films are strange. His short films are strange. You know, for a guy who just did paintings and then something landed on his painting and made it move. I'm pretty sure it was a bug or something. And suddenly, bada bing, bada boom, he wants to make paintings move, and then he does animation, and then he starts making short films, and then he does eraserhead. So, I don't know. He's one of those guys who was very lucky to be, firstly, in America to begin with when it comes to the film landscape, but also just that when he started making things, the right people found him, like with Eraserhead becoming a midnight cult classic film, and then Mel Brooks discovering it and being like, this is the guy for Elephant Man, and then saving his ass by helping to produce Blue Velvet after Dune fucking flopped. There are so many elements that make him such an interesting person and an interesting artist, and it's annoying that we never got a lot of fully realized projects with a lot of the stuff that he wanted to do, like Ronnie Rocket and whatever. But at the same time, there is so much to enjoy about his whole lineup of art that you can't go wrong. Not a guy for everyone, but definitely a very interesting character and a guy who made some very, very beautiful art. And even if you can't always relate to it or connect with it, you can always experience something from it. And I think that's really, really vital when it comes to his work. That if you get an experience from it, that's all you really need. So, yeah, I've still got more of my journey to go with watching the rest of his films. And maybe I will come back in a bit and do a whole retrospective on every single film. I mean, fuck it. It's a YouTube channel. I can do that. But I haven't really done a video talking about Lynch since his passing, and he was an important artistic figure in my life. He influenced my own films from, my university period as well, where I just did weird black and white films. I did one of a toilet one time. People were like, what the fuck, dude? Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what your favorite, or top 3, or top 5, or ranked list for David Lynch is down below. Fuck it. We can do that. I'll probably eventually do it one day. But, yeah. Anyway, I definitely recommend watching these films if you haven't. There's so much. It'd be so strange to see this shirt and be like, Julian, what the fuck are you wearing? I would have worn a different thing. Look, it's even got, like, Laura Palmer. Wow. It's my Rocky Fortin shirt. I was gonna wait for my I've got his name on my fucking sleeve, for my David Lynch bundle to come in, but it's coming in next week, and this is the only time I could film this, so it's okay. Here we go. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Adios.